4 o'clock in New York. What was Carter Page doing on the Trump campaign in the first place? A memo declassified by Donald Trump over the objections of his own FBI director, who warned of grave consequences, today reveals that one-time Trump campaign aide Carter Page was of such concern to the nation's law enforcement and intelligence agencies that a court reauthorized a warrant to surveil him at least 3 times, including twice while Donald Trump was president. The memo also reveals that one of the men who authorized the surveillance of Page is Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. This is significant because Donald Trump is a man with a single mission. In the words of one Trump confidant, derail Mueller. The best way to do that? Fire the man who oversees the Mueller investigation. That would be Rod Rosenstein. The memo is being used by the president to smear the FBI and Justice Department.
I think it's terrible. You want to know the truth? I think it's a disgrace. What's going on in this country, I think it's a disgrace. The memo was sent to Congress. It was declassified. Congress will do whatever they're going to do. But I think it's a disgrace what's happening in our country. And when you look at that and you see that and so many other things, what's going on, a lot of people should be ashamed of themselves, and much worse than that. So I sent it over to Congress. They will do what they're going to do. Whatever they do is fine. It was declassified. And let's see what happens. But a lot of people should be ashamed. Thank you very much.
Are you not concerned that the FBI doesn't want the memo out?
Thank you very much.
Does it make you more likely to fire Rosenstein? Do you still have confidence in him after reading the memo?
You figure that one out.
We'll get to that, which is a disgrace, later. But a former top intelligence official under Democratic and Republican presidents telling me today that the president revealed sources and methods, cherry-picked information, and exposed country's most effective tools for fighting terrorism and espionage for his own political and legal interests. He also explained to me that a FISA application is typically 40 to 50 pages long and relies on multiple and fruitful streams of intelligence. If it was used, the Steele dossier would have made up a small fraction of the information to make the case for ongoing surveillance of Page. This source explained the incredibly high bar for renewing a surveillance application on a U.S. citizen 3 times, suggesting that he was obviously of ongoing concern to U.S. counterintelligence investigations. He summed up his exasperation with the release of classified information by asking where was the DNI and the rest of the national security establishment, a question a lot of people are asking this hour. We're going to take you through the much ballyhooed memo release, tell you what it means for the Russia investigation, and discuss potential resignations or firings of senior DOJ or FBI leadership. Let's get right to it with our experts. Jeremy Bash, former chief of staff at both the CIA and Pentagon, now an MSNBC national security analyst. Matt Miller, former chief spokesman for the Justice Department in the Obama administration, now an MSNBC justice and security analyst. Chuck Rosenberg, a former U.S. attorney who has worked on the staffs of both Robert Mueller and James Comey at the FBI and is now an MSNBC contributor. And with us on set, NBC's Ken Dilanian and Republican strategist Steve Schmidt. Jeremy Bash, let me start with you on this idea that Carter Page, who we know was first surveilled in 2013, at least 2 to 3 years before he ended up in the Trump orbit, and years before the Steele dossier ever existed. Just talk about Carter Page being in the center of a big, big political distraction, a move meant to smear the FBI, which may have the effect of creating a smokescreen so he can do what he really wants to do, which is to get rid of the guy overseeing the Mueller probe.
Yeah, I think it's important, Nicole, that we all remember that the Mueller investigation really had its origins in July of 2016, when after Papadopoulos was basically approached by Russian intelligence handlers, the investigation, the counterintelligence investigation of the Trump campaign kicked off. So the fact that a FISA application was made in October 2016 shows that that application was not the basis for the Mueller investigation. And I think it's important also to note, Nicole, that this memo released today by Nunes is totally incomplete. It cherry picks all kinds of information. It doesn't say what other information the FISA court relied on. And I also think its revelation is dangerous because for the first time, the Russians now know the precise dates that Carter Page was under electronic surveillance. And if he was their probable agent, which is what the court found, they know when their communications were him to him were discovered by U.S. law enforcement.
And Chuck Rosenberg, I'm guessing that you either turned in FISA applications or you helped submit the kind of intelligence that would have gone on an application. Can you just do a brief explainer? What is the FISA court? What is the bar for surveilling a U.S. citizen? And why would someone want to continue to listen to someone like Carter Page?
Well, Nicole, you're right. When I worked for Bob Mueller at the FBI post 9/11, one of my jobs was to review all of the FISA applications before the director certified it, before the AG signed it, before it was taken to a federal district court judge for his or her review. And so right there in my answer, you can see it's a pretty fulsome process. The standard is probable cause. It's the same probable cause you would need, more or less, if you were in criminal court seeking a search warrant for a bank robber. Here, in the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, we're simply looking at whether or not a U.S. citizen, in this case Carter Page, is probably an agent of a foreign power, and whether the surveillance will yield information that shows that.
To be reauthorized 3 times, it probably had to show that Carter Page was acting as an agent of a foreign power, right?
Well, that's exactly right. And between application 1 and 2, you have more information that is acting in that way. Between application 2 and 3, even more, and so on and so forth. So really pretty straightforward stuff, Nicole.
So, Steve Schmidt, how stupid are they? I mean, did any of them read what they just revealed? I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong. They just revealed that the Trump campaign hired an agent of a foreign power as their senior foreign policy advisor to the president's campaign.
They sure did. Look, I don't think
that's what happens when you rely on Devin Nunes as your strategist, I guess.
When you saw the president earlier in the Oval Office, what he did essentially was toss up a serve, like a volleyball, out over the net, which will now be spun into all manner of conspiracy theories
by
right-wing
or a bomb.
right-wing media that will spin off in 100 different directions. All of this, and I think it's much less important to focus on what's in the memo than it is to focus on the intent of the memo.
Right.
The intent of the memo is to sow confusion and chaos around the material facts of the Russia investigation, which is, did somebody or peoples on the Trump campaign, maybe with the knowledge of the president, maybe without, we'll find out, collude with intelligence officers of the Russian Federation to influence the outcome of the election? We know that the Russians tried to cause chaos in the election, to discredit American institutions in the eyes of the American people. We know that senior Trump campaign officials, including the son-in-law, the son, and the campaign chairman, met with Russian officials. How deep did it go? What did people know? When did they know it?
Right.
All of that is yet to come, and when it comes, the release of this memo, the purpose of it, is to spin as much smoke as they can possibly be made to obscure it all.
But I think, Matt Miller, I think what they did was to clear a little bit of smoke around Carter Page and tell all of us that he was known to have been under surveillance under these very high standards that Jeremy and Chuck have spoken to since 2013. So let's go through some of the substance of the memo, because I think they could have used a press person like you or me to help them. It doesn't look like it got fact-checked. So the memo alleges, and this was written by the Nunes staff in close contact, I'm told, with the Trump White House. The memo alleges that a dossier compiled on Trump by Christopher Steele was a key part of information to show the FISA court to gain approval for surveillance of Carter Page. Now, it's my understanding that it was just one of many streams, that a FISA warrant is not granted based on a single piece of evidence from anyone, and that lots of streams of evidence, you know, if you're dealing with informants, many of them have questions about credibility, but that's why the court takes all that into consideration, and this would have been a fraction of the information they looked at.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Nicole. One of the things about this memo that's incredible is not only is it misleading because of what it leaves out, for example, other evidence that we know from other reporting the Department of Justice submitted to the FISA court, but even in the substance of the memo that it includes, it in several cases gets facts wrong or mischaracterizes them. For example, you know, it makes a claim about Andy